Hey there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Kylie Elizabeth, also known as the Virtuoso Educator. And my special guest today, I have Dr. Jewel Williams coming from Virginia. And Dr. Jewel is an educator and health science researcher and a dissertation mentor. She also has a wealth of experience, just like most of the guests have on the episodes with us for Peep into Education. So she's a national registered EMS trainer, and a certified nurse, and does some CPR things, and previously a PK through 12 administrator. So I'm going to bring on Dr. Jewel to talk with us today, and we're going to go over a little bit about the health sciences and education, and to just kind of help bridge some transitions between high school to college. And so I'm going to bring her in.
Hey.
All right. Hi there. How's it
How
going?
you doing, Kylie?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your amazing podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to the people that are watching, and then we'll get going into our conversation.
Sounds great. I am Dr. Jewel White Williams, and I am a nationally registered EMT, as well as a certified nursing assistant. I have 22 years in education. I had 14 years as an administrator, where I was a principal for elementary as well as an assistant principal for high school, focused also on alternative education. I have been a caregiver for approximately 7 people, and my list goes on. I'm an HBCU grad.
Nice.
I'm part of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. A plethora of things, and I just recently obtained my BLS instructor so that I can teach CPR for basic life support. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So go back to the HBCU. So which HBCU did you get to graduate from, or that you went to, and how was that experience? I like to ask those that went to an HBCU because I didn't attend one myself.
Oh, let me tell you, it's amazing. Okay, so I went to St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. It is no longer a college that is up and running, and that is one of the big things that we talk about a lot about HBCUs. Unfortunately, HBCUs have difficulty with funding, and that's the reason why we do everything we can to have support. But yet, even though our college is no longer in existence, we do have an alumni, and we're extremely active. We still have get-togethers often, at least twice a year, for an alumni conference and, of course, alumni gathering. And we support other HBCUs around. The experience was incredible. I mean, I met so many people. Even to this day, we stay in touch. We contact each other, especially my sorority sisters and I. We contact each other at least 3 to 4 times a week. Yes. And I mean, I graduated a year ago. Just joking. I graduated years ago, seriously. But we have been in contact for 30 plus years, and we have been enjoying just each other, just checking on each other, seeing how people are doing. If someone does something as an accolade, we celebrate what they do. Unfortunately, if there's a death, we actually recognize what's going on, ask if there's anything we can help with. And if we're within that area, we try to attend. But an HBO experience is something that it's hard to describe. You got to be in it because it's truly like a spirit, a soul experience, and it's great.
I've heard that before. That's awesome. And I think just to have that connection, from your colleagues, right, in education that you went to school with, and that build that sisterhood, or that, that family, that additional family. And that's what I love about just going to college in general. And I think a lot of people don't even experience that, that don't go for various reasons, right? But even me, I have like the closest friends that I met when I went to college. So I love that. Thank you so much. All right, so I would love to kind of learn about how you got into the EMT and nursing, and what led you on that path.
Okay, so I'm not a LPN or RN. I'm a CNA, and I got it because of my family. I was a caregiver for approximately 7 people. Beginning at age 24, I started caring for my godfather, who ended up having cancer, esophageal cancer. And so he said, "Hey, Jewel, I need some assistance." And from that point on, I started just helping different people in our family, godparents, or anybody else who needed assistance, aunt, mom, mother-in-law, my father-in-law, anybody who's out there who needed assistance, they knew that I love science and I would do whatever I could to look for and make sure that they were feeling better or at least feeling comfortable. And that's what I did for my godfather. I found a place where he could feel comfortable toward his last days. And then it moved on where I was caring for my mom on occasion, not all the time, and then my dad, and then my mother-in-law, and a couple other people. And so, to make a long story short, I decided, let me go and get my CNA so I could have something while my dad is still alive. And then they made some changes at my job, and some changes that I didn't feel it was time for me to move in that direction. So I went on ahead and resigned. And I said, you know what? It's time to look after my family. And that's why I got my CNA. But in the midst of getting my CNA, as I was traveling on the roads, I saw they were looking for a sign. They said, hey, I'm looking for an EMS driver. I say, oh, I'll drive the ambulance. I have no problem. At least I can kind of get my feet in it. Because when I was in Maryland, I went on a couple rides. And I was like, I really kind of want to do that. And then I said, I got in there and the chief looked at me and she was like, I think you can take that course. So I decided to take that challenge, Kylie. I ended up doing the CNA class, trying to finish the CNA class up. I was in my doctoral program and I had signed up for EMT school. So I was in 3 programs at the same time for at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That was no joke. Yeah. Trying to get all the assignments in for the doctorate, trying to do the EMS and finishing up the CNA clinical. So, and then prepare for the test. So I got in it because my life dealt around that. And in my earlier years, I did autopsies. I worked in histology and nuclear medicine and pharmacy. And so it has always been in that realm. And to just give a little insight, because you asked, how did I get into it? I think as educators, we need to be careful as to how we speak to students sometimes. And the reason I say that is because it all started when I was in high school. I had a dream of going through some scientific classes, considering going for my MD or a PA or something of that nature to kind of get my feet wet. And unfortunately, impressions and trying to say, hey, you have the capability, it was discouraged that, hey, I don't think she can handle it. And it wasn't just me, it was several other students. Some students went on ahead and ignored. Some of us kind of were ashamed because of the way that it was done. And so you have that. And so sometimes I think the impression that we give when we are working and guiding and giving an impression upon our students, we need to keep that in mind. And so that's why I went on ahead. And after I graduated from college, I said, you know what? I'm not stopping. I'm going to go back, get a little more education and pursue the health sciences just a little bit more. And so that's what I did. That's how I got into it originally.
Nice. Awesome. And yes, you made a very great point. And this is something that I talk about a lot to the teachers that I'm around, is what you say and what you do to these students has a huge effect on their outcome of their dreams, their goals, and what they're going to be encouraged or discouraged of doing. And so, like you said, being discouraged to do something because they may feel that you might not be able to do it for whatever inclination that you give off is very interesting to me in the field of education, because we're supposed to be, persuading these students and encouraging and just saying, you can do anything you really put your mind to. And I really do believe that. And, me personally, I kind of feel that a lot of the education system kind of holds a very low bar for our students and for all students. And I'm not specifically speaking one demographic here, but we do know it does happen more, tend to happen more in other demographics than others, but we shouldn't as teachers ever discourage a student from wanting to do something, especially if they have a passion for it. And I talk about that innate responsibility or the love of the things that they want to do. And so we should, as educators, really tap into those students' passion and see, okay, instead of, no, maybe that's not going to work, to say, okay, what do you need to do to work on,
And Kelly, I think one of the things, and I have no problem saying this, I was in a county that I assisted with the process of integration. So I was bused, even though we had an elementary school that was not too far from me. We
Mhm.
actually were bused about 30 to 35 minutes, ended up 45 because of the stops and all that away.
Mm.
And so that county was still going through quite a bit of even later, even after from elementary to high school, they were still kind of getting themselves warmed up to the integrating part of having us bus to the various sections. The counselor that I had for the first 3 years had that
Mhm.
encouragement, though. He saw the various things, he saw the things that he knew the things that I wanted to do. And for some reason, I don't know what happened. We ended up getting a brand new counselor, and it was didn't have the same kind of oomph, the
Mm.
the will to see the good in all.
Okay.
So and it was kind of interesting because it's amazing how life turns out.
Yeah.
I ended up going back teaching in the same county in which I
Mhm.
graduated from, and I also taught night school. And one of when I went through the beginning stages of teaching, the counselor that I had of course moved up the chain.
Sure.
And I thought about approaching, but I said no. I said there's gonna be a
Mm.
right time for the right place at the right moment for something else. And lo and behold, at night school, the counselor comes through the door. I had my head down trying to look and figure out who these kids are that are in my night class. And this man comes in and says, "I think I know who you are." And I was like,
Oh.
who in the world is this man coming around the corner? Come to find out, it was the original counselor in high school, Mr. Mack, who walked through the door, who was wanting to know where I went, what I decided to do, because he said to me that he had wished that he could have finished the group that he had, which
Mm.
was
Yeah.
and he wanted to know what happened to all of us. He still remained in the school. They just swapped the kids on.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yep, and swapping the kids, and um, I love that he came back and checked on you because another guest in another one of my podcasts, he says that people kind of move on and or you get separated but never go back to check on what did happen with that. I was in a similar situation but kind of reverse where I had my students taken from me, but that's because I didn't have a certain certificate to allow the kids to get dual credit. And
Okay.
basically, long story short, like I had about 18 seniors advocate for not wanting to be with the opposite, the other teacher, for various reasons and experiences through high
Mhm.
school or middle school. Actually, I'm sorry, from their middle school. That's a story for another day. But what ended up happening was they gave the students to this person against all things that they've requested as seniors, like we want to see this through with Miss Kylie, like all these things. And I ended up coming away, and then kind of to the point of people kind of doubting you or kind of putting you down. It's the same from my past experience, and this is another reason why I moved out of the teaching world in Wisconsin, was because I felt like I really put in a lot in my job, and then when I sought like letters of recommendation, or when I sought assistance with something, it was kind of like, oh, we can't do that for you. And I was really questioning, like, well, why not? Like, I've 3 years of summer professional development, and I developed about three programs for the high schools. And when I went to leave after curriculum writing for 3 years, I was told I couldn't get a letter of recommendation, and it's not
Wow.
really wasn't even justified. And I'm just like,
Wow.
okay, like, so it's kind of like they had some type of doubt in me for some reason, and they didn't want to give me that letter. And so it's kind of like, oh, I wish you could kind of see me now type of thing. And
Yes,
it's so
yes.
like gratifying at the same time, but it's at the same time kind of sad. Like, why do we have to face that type of negativity or experience, within the world of education? Like,
Yes, yes.
education really should be positive, and we shouldn't keep having these like battles
No,
internally
no,
and,
no, you
and
shouldn't. And the thing
minorly.
about and it's
Yeah.
wild that you said that. So he ended up being the night school counselor. So that was the wild
Mm,
thing about it. So I ended up having him as a counselor, but he was for my students, but it was still pretty cool. But
yeah.
I think what you stated though happens more frequently than you know. A
Hmm.
lot of people, which I'm learning, especially when you get into graduate school, a lot of the professors are not writing recommendations.
Mm,
And so once you graduate, they're wondering, look, you haven't had a chance to really work because you've been in school. So you're just doing something, and most people are going to school and working at the same time, but it's not in the field that you wish to get it in. A lot of people are not doing that now. So it's kind of interesting. It kind of puts that student in a very awkward stance because a lot of the places that you are applying to want to have a recommendation letter from the most recent school, especially if you just recently graduated. And so that puts them in an awkward stance. I guess education it's just a little awkward. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
it is, right? And that's why I love having these conversations, because I just want to be like, well, why? Like, why are we still doing this?
Help inform me.
Please, because it's not this hard. It should not ever be this hard. And at the end of the day, we should just be helping each other. And if I was able to demonstrate something for you consistently for 3 years, you think you'd help me out there. But I think that kind of goes into, so you talk about that you are a mentor for those with their writing their dissertations.
Yes.
What does that look like?
So it's very interesting. I'm not hired by the school at all. It's just that it's just one of my things that I don't mind doing. I help out those who are trying to acquire their health science doctorate. I try to help them with the process, understanding the process, understanding the emotional part of the process, understanding the physical part of the process, understanding the scientific part, as well as the writing process. So it's kind of like almost a 4 or 5 thing, kind of key thing to kind of get them ready. Sometimes when one thing that I noticed, just mentoring and not necessarily coaching, but just giving some guidance to some of the students, is that one of the key things that I tell them is that you're not writing this paper for yourself.
Right.
And it's kind of hard for them to see it that way because you put so much time, energy, and you're researching so much. And but they have to understand that when they do write this work, and the changes that they're making is because they're growing through the process. As a person who majored as an English major, yes, it was difficult because here I am used to teaching people how to write, teaching people, how to actually, put the citations where they need to go. But the thing about it is that when you're writing scientifically, you can't put all that fluff in there. You still need to use this in citations, and you have to still put everything in there, but you look at it from a whole different point of view. You look at it as though it is research, and that's exactly what it is. It's research. And so the students, it kind of brushes against their personalities sometimes, but it's okay. When they graduate, let me tell you, I got some happy campers.
Yeah, I bet you do. And I like just took a whole bunch of notes because I've been kind of going back and forth with myself of like, do I really want to go for my doctorates, or like, is it even the right time to do so? And what would I even do? And so I literally like started with like my dissertation, like topic, like to kind of then pick and choose like what would I actually title a doctorate? Would I go for my PhD or my ED? I think it's an EDD. So, and looking at the difference between what's more scientific based or what's more practical based. And I love the scientific side. I love data and research. So I, was sitting at a lounge, ironically, last night, listening to music, but reading an education, a scholarly article. Like, I just love looking at data and compiling those things and like surveying and asking, questions, and then kind of coming up with, those topics around there. So for me personally, I think I've kind of in the experiences that I've had, especially since I've gotten the education world here, is more leading towards educational law, and which I find very interesting. And
awesome.
Yes, and I'm just like,
did you take the course yet?
I did have one course in my graduate program in that, and I have like this huge education law sitting on my desk that I was like referring to the other day for something, but yeah, I love it, and it's a great topic. And I like how you mentioned too, that emotional side and the scientific
it's
side.
draining. It's draining. You go through a lot during your dissertation. I actually lost 2 family members. Yeah, 2 family members, and also the dog on top of it. So it just sort of put in, and then 3 family members. How can I forget 3 family members and the dog during the dissertation process? And all of the deaths happened within 6 months of not of each other. No, 6 months within that 6-month time frame. All 4 deaths.
Oh my.
And the only reason why I say that is because it can play a toll on, well, do I have the time? I've got to deal with these
Yeah.
deaths. Do I
Mm-hmm.
these were my supporters. What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through that mental capacity part of like, do I have enough? And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, and I have no problem. I like to tell people, when you write your dissertation, there are different types and different forms of dissertations. Some people write
Mm-hmm.
literature reviews, some people write quantitative, qualitative articles, mixed research, some of them
Mm-hmm.
actually interview. There's so many different types of, so that's one of the bigger questions you would need to ask is
Mm-hmm.
what is the end product going to have to look like? Will I have to defend or do I have to do a presentation? Even though I literally had like 2 specific subjects that I really, really wanted to do. Well, at the time that I was in the midst of doing my dissertation, COVID happened. So
Mm.
even though it was online, that still played a role in whether or not I could still attain more information because I was considering doing
Yeah.
interviews and no one was really
Yeah.
doing an interview. People were trying to stay live. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there were multiple things. So I had to switch from doing an actual study to a literature review. Well, that can cause some issues, and I have no problem letting
Right.
people know. It can cause some issues, especially if you want to go into the academia world. You
Mm-hmm.
can, it's hard getting and obtaining an adjunct faculty position sometimes if it does
Mm.
not fit their necessary criteria. So there's so
Interesting.
many questions that you need to ask when you go for your dissertation. Um, Go ahead and contact me on BlackTie Legacy if that, or find a way to get in touch with me because I'm telling you, there's so many questions you need to ask yourself before you start.
Yes, yes, and I wanted to ask you about that. So you are the founder of BlackTie Legacy. I want you to go ahead and explain a little bit about that, and then I'll go back and ask some questions.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You know what? The reason I did BlackTie Legacy is because and it's based off of health science, of course. But the reason I said BlackTie Legacy is because I feel that everyone deserves to have a legacy that is of luxury.
Mm.
When we are
Yes.
living here today and the things in which we do, especially as educators, those who are in healthcare, those who are caring for others, we need to leave
Mm-hmm.
a legacy that is something that is of luxury and of the finest of fine.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And the way that we do things is the way that things are perceived, whether or not we
Mm-hmm.
realize it or not. And so that's one of
Yes.
the things, that's why I called it BlackTie Legacy. BlackTie Legacy was really there because I said I want to develop it as a form of my platform for speaking, because I really believe that what we do, how we perform, and how we give to others needs to be at the
Mm-hmm.
utmost luxury level that we can. I'm talking about
Absolutely.
the $1 million level. Treat
Mm-hmm.
everything and everyone as though they're the top, the cream of the crop.
Yes.
And so during that process of me caring for everybody, I encountered a lot of unwelcoming questions,
Mm.
having to fight because there are disparities in health. And
Yes.
I had to fight on multiple occasions for various family members and those who I was close to, who I was caring for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I just feel like that sometimes we get so involved in the medical part that we sometimes forget about the legacy, forget about why we're doing what we're doing. And that when
Mm-hmm.
we're in the field, we have to remember that's that person's legacy that you're
Yeah.
caring for.
Absolutely. And yeah, and I love all of that. I love all of that. I got like goosebumps. But absolutely, and that's what we were kind of talking about earlier. It's everybody needs to be treated at a high level. I don't care what you're doing, where you came from, all these things, right? And I feel like the world would be so much better if we just do treat people with this high level of respect and like you said that we're leaving a lasting legacy on these students, and it's either reflected within ourselves onto them, or they just like a parent, or
Yes.
our kids take what we give, right, unless they don't
Mhm.
like it and they see and they identify that they don't, and they kind of turn it around. But to be able to stick up for our families, within that healthcare realm, and if something is going on, and I've been through multiple things myself, as you know, a person, you know, 2 C-sections, my left ovary removed, really bad
Wow.
back issues, a knee issue, like all kinds of things. I'm only 34,
Yeah.
but you know, I get a little kind of freaked out by going to the doctors at this point. But you know, but to have people to advocate who know, you know, your rights
Mhm.
within that field. But that emotional side, I kind of touched on this in my last podcast, is that even in the world of education, and I kind of compared it to working in like a healthcare field. Like it's very emotionally draining,
Mhm.
and I know, you know, as being an educator, it can be very emotionally draining, because we turn into therapists and counselors and
Please
all
don't.
of these things that we may not have signed up for, but it is innately built in because you are taking care of people. And
Mhm.
like you said, if we hold them to a very high standard, and just be respectful of all people, I don't think we would have these issues like we do today. Um, and so you were doing this back in, so you were working on your dissertation in 2020, obviously so that's during the pandemic.
I started in
I mean,
2019. I started in 2019, and then I moved forward. I started May
mhm.
2019, and then I graduated August of 2022. Um, yeah, I think I got it right. Did I do it right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it
August 2020.
right.
Okay, yes.
It's 2024 now.
Yeah, right. And so just, you know, and I know even doing a dissertation in general is just really hard. You know, if I've heard it across the board, it's a lot of work, right? Because it's all really you doing it. You got the minor support from, you know, your coach or somebody at the college, but it is a lot on you.
Mm-mm,
But how,
mm-mm, mm-mm,
not even that
mm-mm.
much?
Let me
No,
stop
no
you. Let me
support.
stop you. Let me stop you. Let me stop you.
Okay, go ahead.
Whatever, that's what I said. Let's talk about programs. Programs vary.
Yeah.
So my school didn't have a coach. I got my own coach.
Okay.
All right. And the thing about it is that of course you had to come out of pocket. A lot of people say, okay,
Mm,
I have to do my doctorate, I have to do my dissertation. A lot of colleges require you to obtain an editor. So you have to pay for that editor as well. So if
mm,
you don't have a coach, you got to pay for your own coach. Some people don't have coaches. Sometimes you need somebody else on the other side. Another thing that I do state, and I'm very serious about it, counseling. Counseling is another thing that is highly encouraged, and a lot of people don't like talking about it, but counseling
mm-hmm,
is necessary. And I'm going to say this, and some people are like, well, how is that even attached to education? I think of
mm-hmm,
it as when I was a principal, a lot of the school systems have EAP. And that's when
mm-hmm,
you're looking at, assistance, employee assistance programs, where we realize is maybe some people are just feeling extremely stressed. They're having a lot going on. They really don't want to really talk to a counselor, but yet they know that they need to speak to somebody. That's where EAP
mm-hmm.
comes in for education. And a
Yeah.
lot of the jobs have that as well. But while you're
Mm-hmm,
obtaining your doctorate, you're going to go through a lot of emotional roller coasters. And in the process, and the way, when I first got my first piece of writing back, it had so much red on it.
mm-hmm,
I'm telling you, roller coaster was not the thing. It's called tissues. That's
mm-hmm.
all I can think about is where's the next tissue? Do I need to get a roll of toilet paper because I can't stop crying because I'm an English major. How is it that I had so many errors? Or what was I
Mm,
doing wrong? Well, it was scholarly writing. That was the difference. I'm all about
interesting.
literature. So you go
Right.
through a lot of emotion. So when you look at everything holistically, you're looking at um, you don't sometimes if you don't have a coach, then you need to find someone who can coach you along, because a lot of times the person who is in charge, your the person who's going to sign off, they're guiding you as the teacher, but they can't coach you all the way through because they have 25 people that are on their caseload.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Listen, I'm taking all the notes. I'm like, I know who I'm calling when I decide to go for my doctorate. We've got Dr. Jewel right on my list here. And that's yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And
Oh,
those of
that's
you
no
watching,
problem.
considering going for your doctorate, please take her advice because she knows, she's been through it and she coaches and mentors. So yeah, you know, counseling, I really wouldn't have thought of that.
Mm.
Even though I am somebody who has gone through counseling and I do advocate for counseling for anybody and everybody at some point in your life. It's definitely awesome to talk to somebody who has an outside view of your world. Yeah, so I think it is interesting. Like you said, not every school is the same, and everybody does something a little bit different. And I
They
think that
do.
even in that line, like that's something that trends throughout the US. Of course, this is why we have all these varying different types of school educational settings, and why we have just so many different rules. And even, you know, for me as somebody who looks at a high level view of education from a state level, you know, I still see you got the districts, you got the local control, you got the government, like it's just so many different ins and outs. So definitely everyone do your research before you pick that school, or, you know, ask those deep level questions like what support am I going to have. And I think that's the scariest part for me is the funding of your doctorate, right? And so for someone who has their master's, it's like I already racked up enough loans through my years of school, and I'm just like, I couldn't even imagine adding a doctorate on at this time, just because of funds. But I would love, and I'm a nerd, I love learning, I love going to, I just love like I just want to go because I love being in class with others and learning from other people. And but yeah, so I'll put this on hold, but I'm gonna take a look back into that.
Yes.
There. Another big thing I just kind of wanted to mention is you talked about the EAP, the education
The Employee Assistance Program.
Thank you, the Employee Assistance Program. And you know, that's like a big topic, of course, post COVID, during COVID, and just all the things that are happening in our world of education. You know, when we're having all of these behavior issues, we're talking about, you know, lockdowns and all of these things that are happening across the state. You know, counseling and social emotional learning is super important, you know, within our world of education. And I'll give you another snippet of my experience in Wisconsin and why I decided to leave. Was back in 2017, I went through my divorce, and then my grandmother, who was also my mother, I consider my mother, she raised me for most of my life. She passed away in 2017. And so, you know, that was a really hard time for me. And as a teacher, you know, I went through a very deep and depressive stage, and, you know, I'm not ashamed to talk about that. So I did take off some time from work, but before I took off time, you know, I was struggling because I was on antidepressant medication, and then as well as couldn't sleep. So what do? They give you more medication. And I was taking, you know, some medication to help me sleep at night for insomnia, but that medication was messing with me, and I would be late frequently, right, when I was teaching, and it was causing a problem because, of course, I wasn't there during my first hour of teaching my first period, and I was late, and all of these things. I had to invest in one of those like alarm clocks that has the double bells on them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I would hear it because my body would tune out anything on my phone. Like, it was so bad, right? So of course, you know, I had to go talk to on the HR and everything, and kind of explain what was happening before I got FMLA. And instead of them consoling and, you know, asking if I'm okay and all of these things, and, you know, I'm kind of explaining a little bit of what happened, the first thing that came out of their mouth was, maybe this isn't the right time for you to be an educator, and maybe you should consider stepping down from your position. And that, like, to the core, and at this time, I'm probably about 3-4 years in of teaching in this district, and I was so upset, like, by that statement. I said, how, like, that was the one thing outside of my children that was kind of keeping me going. And I'm like, how would you say that to me, and knowing that I am a dedicated teacher, you know, just kind of struggling a little bit through some things here. And I'm like, but I am going to take some time off, and I would like, that's why I was there, to get FMLA, to get some counseling and some services. And so we talked through, we get to the end of this, and then they're like, is there anything that we can do for you? And I'm just like, interesting. You asked me this at the end, after the fact. So it's just like the emotional support in education and health field and anything, like, just as people, I think we have been very desensitized in our world, and we don't really consider people's emotions. We don't consider, you know, the things that they're going through on a daily basis. And you know, I kind of seen something funny on social media where a guy was recording another person kind of across, but this person walked right past them and cut through their video, and the man recording got mad. He's like, man, how did he do that? And the guy that he was interviewing, he's like, oh, just forgive him. He's in his own little world. And, he doesn't know. Maybe he has a lot of things going on in his life, just like we all do, like all these things, right? And it was kind of like not excusing him, but kind of giving the perception of, he may have something going on, just
where
not
we are
really.
today.
Oh,
That's what it is. He
yes.
gave a perception of where we are today.
Yes.
It's interesting that you said that. And I know this is education, and I talk about health science, and I talk about this. And even though this is not my wheelhouse, I do want to say that a lot of educators are not as privy to FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. The reason why you need to take it. I had to take it to care for some of my family members. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take time off.
Right.
You have to talk to your district to find out what it is that you need to do. EAP is something else that's out there. If they don't have it, they have so many other resources out there. You can also go to your community services board if you need to locate somebody, because they can give you somebody who can be cost effective. As you know, teachers don't make a lot of money. And so a lot of them are on a very, their budgets have to be worked with carefully, shall I say.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that they're broke, because I don't like using that term. So the ultimate thing. So when I talk about education, and I'm glad you brought this up, Kylie, is because health as an educator is huge. And I think sometimes we worry about the kids so much that we kind of neglect ourselves when we're teaching. And I think it's important that we take a step back. We talk about all the types of intelligences that are out there. We talk about how we have to metacognitively think about how we're thinking about education, but we may need to metacognitively think about how we're thinking about our health. We may need to think about our emotional intelligence and how we're working day to day. When you feel that overwhelm, don't ignore it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And don't ignore it. And I say this, I said this in the last video, and I've been using this a lot this week. I don't know why, but they talk about on the airplane, if something happens, you need to put your face mask on first before you try to help others. And I think that I kind of am living by that. So every time I'm on the plane now, I kind of chuckle at that. When you kind of half listen to what they're saying because you've been on a plane so many times. But yes, that it's so important in our world that we live in. And I think even for our kids to understand these things, and us as adults who don't know, a lot of the things that you have privy to, especially if you're an educator or just a person in general, do you know within your insurance, I cannot stand, I'm sorry, let me not go there, the health insurance, but do you understand how these things work? And even if you have state insurance, do you understand what perks you get and what you can get, just knowing all of the basic foundations. And I kind of chuckle about living in the US, and we're human, we can't help what happens to us, yet I feel tortured with medical bills because I have pre-existing health conditions, all of these things. So I think we got to come back and have a conversation on that.
No, seriously. And the thing about it is, you brought something to my mind though, too. I was thinking of our new teachers. They have such a plethora and a weight on them when they come in. They're so excited. Oh, I can't wait to teach all these kids. I can't wait, da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden that overwhelm hits them around October.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if you started in August, it hits them in September, right before the first parent-teacher conference or that open house or whatever you want to call it. It depends on the school system. But the thing about it is that they're on that overwhelm. They've been given their medical insurance papers. They've signed the papers. They got the card. Then they're hitting the overwhelm of all the classes that they have. If they're elementary, which a lot of people don't think about, they normally have at least 5 classes, and they get to that one 30 to 40 minute break away from the children after they go to specials. I mean, and it's nonstop. They go home and start grading papers. They start putting grades into the system. Sometimes for elementary, a lot of the schools are not doing grading systems anymore. It's either satisfactory or doing well. They may do grades maybe in 5th grade. Depends. But the ultimate thing is that we hit December. And you can see it on their face. Yes, they're ready for a rest. But they don't realize all of the good stuff that they got in that packet, because they went over it quickly, but
Yeah.
they themselves didn't go through the packet to find out all the good stuff that's in there that can help them through the process. And I think that's one of the things that, I mean, but the thing about it is HR's got a lot on their plate too. So, I mean, it's just like everyone's got a lot on their plate.
Not on the plate.
Have
Yes.
for you to speak about it, if this little bit can help to that, I call it the freshman teacher.
Yes.
Whatever I could do to help and let them know, read through your papers for health and find out what's there. Find out what the mental health resources are. Find out what the counseling services are, because most health insurances do take counseling. Now, you got to know that sometimes, you sign that dotted line. Anything that you say, if it is of something that's going to hurt or harm you, we do have to report it. I'm sorry, that's just one of the things that even as principals, if something is said, we have to do the same thing.
Yes.
But there's so much that's there that our educators can get. A lot of them have wellness programs. You can take yoga. Sometimes the Y or something, some kind of facility is 50% off or free for them. So they can take advantage of that. And then those facilities have other resources that are there. There's so many resources that are out there that they just don't have that opportunity to take advantage of. Sorry, I had to say something.
No, thank you. Please don't apologize, because thank you. So educators, please take a look at those resources, especially if you feel like you're in need of something. Definitely talk to HR. And I definitely advocate for more like trainings on those things. But like you said, everybody has so much to do. And I think I was like, I wish there was more time in the day, but I'm like, do I really? Because I'll probably just be more working more. But it's like, I feel like we, just maybe another 2 hours, it might not hurt us in a day to just kind of really have some time to do a little bit more there. So to kind of wrap us up, but again, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And just so everybody knows, Dr. Jewel White-Williams is on Facebook. If you want to connect with her there. Do you have another platform?
I'm primarily on LinkedIn is my bigger thing. Seriously, LinkedIn is where you can find me on Facebook. It's more a little of the private stuff because I have like my family on there, but I'm primarily on LinkedIn. I do have an Instagram account. I'm twiddling with it, but it's primarily there. But LinkedIn is where I am extremely active. If you have questions, you can email me. If you would like for me to help you understand some more about health, I have no problem about that. But yes, LinkedIn is my thing.
Okay, great. So catch her on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely the new hotspot. I love it lately, kind of connecting with some people. So thank you so much, Dr. Williams. My last question before you get off, and I've been kind of asking everybody this on the channel, is in the world of education and, from your experience as an educator and in the world that you're doing now in the health field, what is something that we need to work on here in the US or even within your state or anywhere to just have a better overall educational experience for our students or our teachers?
I was going to say, I kind of want to look at our teachers. And it's nothing negative about our students. Our students, one thing, and I'm going to take this from my husband, I hope he doesn't mind, but he said there was one, and other people have said this, one thing that does not change as you are a teacher, and let's say you've been in that school for 10 years, okay? The one thing that does not change are the age of the students, but you're the one that's aging. So as you're doing the aging, the thing about it is that we got to look at how things are changing. We're talking about all the technology resources. We're talking about all the books that can or cannot be in the classroom. We're talking about the use of computers. We're talking about how students and the parents are working with the students at home. Some are doing great, some are not. We have all these micro schools now. So I think one of the things we need to think about is, how is education changing? And how are the teachers being prepared for the changes that are occurring? And I say that because we have so many people who are waiting to get to that 30-year mark or that 42-year mark or the 50-year mark in education. But we've got to be able to make that change. I have no problem to say that there are so many things that are changing that I got to always keep reading. I've always got to keep studying. When you find yourself at that point of not wanting to do that, then that's when you need to make the change as an educator.
Right. Absolutely.
So as looking at it holistically for our nation, the system is still kind of the same. So the system is still kind of the same. So I know we don't want to look at everybody else in all the other nations, but what are they doing that is allowing them to get to that higher level of education?
Yes,
What is
absolutely.
it that they're doing to make sure they're well-rounded? And we talk about well-rounded, but the well-rounded is when we put more on our teachers, being the
Yes.
nurse, the counselor, the mom, the dad, and we can keep going on. But are the other systems throughout the world doing the same thing? Are we holding who's being held accountable in this process? And are they being, and if they are the teachers, then what are the resources that we're doing to help provide them in this process? And like we just finished talking about, Kylie, we've got to look at the teacher, him or her, or the gender itself. You know, I got to be careful with them. That they're going through a lot. These teachers today are going through a lot.
Yes.
And so whatever resources that you do bring in, make sure that it's holistic. We're not talking about the next curriculum or the next instructional fad.
Right.
We're talking about let's get the holistic part of the teacher.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
one of the
ma'am.
things I want to look at.
That's such a great, I just want to keep going, but we're already 45 minutes in. I think we got to hold that one for another time, Dr. Williams, but absolutely, I've definitely been advocating for that. I tell the teachers that I work with all the time, like you said, we got to be okay with change as educators. Like, change happens yearly, it can happen weekly, but change will continue to happen in education as we are evolving as people, as we are evolving in technology. All of that is like the huge one of the biggest changes. And kind of coming down from COVID, we really have to take a different approach and look at what we're doing here in education. And I hope these types of conversations really do help us kind of go into the right direction. So thank you again so much for your time tonight. Thank you. Thank you to the followers and those that are watching. Please like, follow, and share my page. And of course, check up with Dr. Jewel White-Williams on her LinkedIn and Facebook. And I hope to talk to you guys all soon.
Take care.
Thank you.